Welcome to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show. Delighted to give you your daily fix of football chat from the headlines in the morning papers right across the stories emerging later in the day. The main talking points: Scotland manager Gordon Strachan is preparing for the biggest game of his managerial career in charge of the national side, and he says his team are not dirty despite the accusations from the Polish camp ahead of tomorrow's crucial European Championship qualifier. We'll also hear from a very confident Scott Brown, and as St Johnstone try to extend the stay of their manager Tommy Wright, the odds have been slashed on John Yogi Hughes becoming the next manager of Dundee United. That's just a few of the points we'll be discussing tonight. Alan Ruff is alongside me, Peter Martin, and our Bootroom guest can give us some great insider knowledge on Scotland ahead of this big game.
The Boot Room, sponsored by Third Dimension Framing.
Yep, Gordon Strachan talking about the big game, but we have a Gordon of our own, Gordon Smith, alongside Ruffy to talk about the international fixture coming up. And no surprise that Gordon Strachan himself has mentioned at today's press conference that this one is the biggest game of his international career.
I would imagine so. It's a big one. But we'll put ourselves in this position to be a big one. Well, let's put ourselves in a position by playing well for a lot of the tournament, or put ourselves in a position by no scoring a goal against Georgia. So we're here, we put ourselves in a position, and it's a big game, as you say.
Would you have taken that, Ruffy, prior to the group starting, that we'd be involved in a match that gives us a chance to get into a playoff? At
worst, yeah. I thought the way the team was playing, we were good enough to get that second place. I think we'd all been through, what usually happens when Scotland come to the end of a programme. We always have a big game that we need to win, and it's happened again. And it puts a lot of pressure on everybody. But yep, you've got to take the chance. You've got to always want to be in it.
Yeah, I know that a number of people have been mentioning, and I've gone on record myself as saying that they should be extending Gordon Strachan's time as Scotland manager. I think he's galvanised the country. Obviously, the last couple of results haven't gone his way, Gordon, but I think he's still cagey on whether he's going to extend or not. I think he's waiting to see what happens in these two games.
I think so, because if you do consider it, if we don't get in the qualifying position with a playoff, then we're actually then fourth in the group, and that is the worst a Scotland manager's done for quite some time. Because two managers who were heavily criticised, George Burley and Craig Levein, actually finished third, and both of them could be considered unlucky. George Burley was second, equal, but lost, became third in goal difference. Craig Levein was third only because the Czech Republic got a controversial penalty that got them a point at Hampden, and if he'd won that game that night, he would have been second. And yet Gordon Strachan then finishing even below that third and fourth position must be a major disappointment.
Yeah, Robbie, that's an interesting take from Gordon on it. I mean, hindsight is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think it'll be a Gordon Strachan decision. He has been like that throughout his career. Even at Celtic, when he walked away, he said that, I think it was him that came out and said 4 years is long enough in any job. But I think things would change, obviously, if we qualified. He'd want to be there. He'd want to be the manager that was in charge for the first time in a long time. But if we weren't to go there, I think he would sit back and assess his, input into everything rather than what everybody else is looking at. He'll take a lot of things into consideration, whether the management of an international team suits his lifestyle. Would he want to go back into club management? These are things he'll have to weigh up, but I think he'll really want to be the manager that takes us to a final.
But his contract's not up if we get through to the playoff and get through to the finals, though, Ruffy. His contract finishes when Scotland are no longer in the European Championships, which means it could be in a week's time or by next summer. So that his contract does extend, but it's to the end of this campaign. Yeah. So that's the decision. If we don't get the third spot, I should say, and we're fourth, then Gordon Strachan has to decide whether it's time to go or not, because his contract is actually at an end at that point.
Yeah, well, let's hope his contract's still ongoing all the way through to 2016. The chances of it are based on his team selection Anya is out, Ruffy. Is that a big blow?
I didn't think Anya was as good in the last two games as he was early on in the campaign. I think he was a new addition into the squad, and he was really bubbling. You know, he was causing havoc all over the place. But I think teams were beginning to suss him out a wee bit in the last two games, and even at club level, he hasn't been as as good as what he was. So no, I don't think so. I think Naismith for me is going to be a massive player for us. And Maloney, you can't leave Maloney out. He's our top goal scorer in this competition, you know, and he's scored in majority of the games. So, no, I would have thought he might have left him out of this one.
Yeah, let's look at our selection for how we think it's going to pan out here. Here's Ruffy's team selection and who he thinks will start the game. And maybe when you have a look at this team, Ruffy, you can explain to us your thinking behind it to see exactly why you've selected this starting 11.
Yeah, well, I know we're all brainwashed into when we come to international football, two sitting midfielders. I think we're at home advantage now. I think we've got to up a gear. I think we've got to try and get as many players forward as possible. I would like to think that we're in the front foot more than Poland. So I think the wide areas are very, very important. And I think goal scorers as well. I think we've got to have many people who know where the back of the net is. And certainly with the two wide guys, I've already touched on Maloney, Fletcher. We're all looking for something special with him. I just think when I listen to Gordon Strachan talking, he's talking about possession of the ball. He's talking about keeping a hold of it. If we keep the ball longer than them, the less chances they've got of scoring. So I think Fletcher in there is the kind of guy who could control the whole situation.
Yep, okay. So that's Ruffy's team selection. Gordon, what's your thinking behind the 11 that you've chosen that you think will start for Scotland?
Well, I don't think this will start this team, but I think this is what I would play. That's slightly different from. I would go with a different team if I said what will Gordon Strachan's team be.
Yes.
And the reason I've gone for that is because I think we do need two sitting midfield players. We need two holding players because we'll be doing most of the attacking, and therefore we've got to be careful we don't get caught in the counter attack, because that's where Poland are a real threat. And because these two fullbacks, Hutton and Robertson, are very attacking players. So I think if they're up the field, you need people who can sit, and that's Brown and Fletcher's role there. I think with Anya not being playing, I think we should go for an attacking winger type, and that's why I brought in Ritchie. I'd play him, and I would play Naismith off Griffiths. I think when it comes down to form, I think Lee Griffiths is the form striker, and that's why I would have him in before Fletcher. Maybe bring Fletcher on later in the game. Yeah. Maybe a bit of power needed when you're going to throw the ball into the box. But initially, I would play Griffiths. Okay,
here's my thoughts on it, Ruffy and Gordon, only due to the fact that I try and listen intently to everything Gordon Strachan says, and Mark McGee when he was in the studio. He's loyal. He likes people who've got that experience, who won't be exposed, which is why I don't think he'll plump for Graham Shinnie. It would be a huge risk, I think, to throw him into such a game of such magnitude. I think I agree with you, Gordon, two holding midfielders, because you know, we've got to make sure when we're on the back foot, Lewandowski doesn't have any space whatsoever.
Definitely.
And I just think from Mark McGee, I think you'll go with Fletcher up front, Ruffy, because it's tried and trusted in this system.
It's tried and trusted, there's no doubt about it. He's playing at a higher level of football, and I know he's not scoring goals regularly, but the players that he's coming up against are better than what Lee Griffiths is coming up against in the SPFL. And the bottom line for me is, who's the £12 million player?
Yeah, okay, and the other aspect of this was Gordon Strachan defending the team, because the polls have suggested that Scotland are a dirty team. Gordon Strachan's having none of it.
Oh no, it's over the tournament. We they've had 30%, at least 30%. I don't know what maths are that great, but I know the figures. It's about 30% more fouls against them than we have. They've had more yellow cards than we have. So that's the reality.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of kidology. I think it's a wind-up. I think the polls are just basically trying to put a little bit of pressure on the Hungarian official, Ruffy.
Yeah, it's all based on the Gordon Greer tackle on him. You know, that's the only evidence there is. I mean, we're definitely not a dirty team. You know, obviously your defenders have got to make tackles. Scott Brown, if anybody in our team, is the only guy who's going to go out and put his foot in where it hurts. The rest of them are all want to play football. So, yeah, I don't go along with that at all. I just think they're trying to make the referee aware that certain players in his team need protection.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be back in the next part of the programme, and we will also be discussing the Show Racism the Red Card initiative, which kicks off today in earnest. And with that in mind, we'll get the thoughts of Gordon and Ruffy to Show Racism the Red Card, and we'll talk about that Dundee United job as well as St Johnstone's predicament too, and lots more to talk about from the news that's been emerging today. So from Ruffy, Gordon and myself, Peter, we're back after the break. Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show, and of course alongside Alan Ruff and myself, Peter Martin, our boot room guest is former SFA Chief Executive Gordon Smith.
The Boot Room, sponsored by Third Dimension Framing.
And I'm delighted to say both of them are was on Play School there, just showed everybody as if they couldn't work it out. I mean, it's a great initiative. Today they'll kick off 2 weeks of campaigning, although the work that Show Racism the Red Card and of course PFA Scotland do around the country is absolutely invaluable. I know Gary Mackay does it, Derek Ferguson heavily involved in it as well, Jose Katongo, lots of people going out and spreading a positive message, which I think Gordon Smith needs to be done continually.
Well, absolutely, and it's been quite some time as well, as we put out. But you'll always have people, you know, racists will always exist in general in society, and sometimes in football they get a voice because, you know, they make gestures and things like at opportune moments for them, and people see it, and we recognise that racism's still there. It's getting cut out more and more, I think, because of this factor that we have these campaigns every now and again, Peter. And I always say, if you want to actually improve attitudes, you have to address behaviour first. Once people start to behave better, then attitudes improve with that. And you get the odd example of it now, but it's certainly not as bad as it was in the past.
Yeah, and I think, Ruffy, today at Bellahouston, you know, there's a lot of ex-footballers there obviously backing the campaign, and good to see kids out there too, and they obviously, you know, can relate to it. They get a chance to chat to people, and then of course you try and get the message over to as many kids at grassroots level as possible.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is getting over to the new generation, the new kids who are coming through, and if we can do that and if we can get the message through to them, I think they'll be a much better place. But Gordon's right, you know, it is getting better and better year on, but the more we make it aware to people, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you'll completely eradicate it, but if you can get a you mentioned there, Gordon, I think society, you know, as a whole.
Yeah, certainly. If we're addressing it through the football world, it's a good medium for it because people get to see it better in that respect. And they think if you can address it through sport, then it maybe society improves because of that. I think more and more we're seeing a lot of examples. I mean, there are a lot of kids coming to this country as well, even ones at the moment who are refugees are having to come over here, and some people will accept it because it's required. Other people will be against it just because they don't want to see foreign people coming into the country. There's some degrees of it will be racism, but in the main it's been addressed, and as I say, sport is a great venture in order to put it across in the right manner.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as the Scotland team for tomorrow, we've had a guess at what we think will be the starting 11. Of course, the players that go out there, one of the players that I think is an absolute integral part of it all is the captain that we mentioned in the first part of the programme. Scott Brown has been singing the praises of his fellow teammates going into this huge game.
I know it's going to be hard. Tight. We have to defend well and attack well as a team, and I think that's our attributes, to be perfectly honest. And we're a great team. We work hard off the ball as well as on the ball for everyone else, and I think that's what makes us Scotland, to be perfectly honest, and with a great chance of doing this.
Yeah, I don't think we will in any way suffer from any kind of complacency is probably not the right word, but I don't think we'll suffer a repeat of what happened in Georgia. I think they'll be charged up for it. There's a crowd that'll be absolutely packed to the rafters, Ruffy, and you can sense by Scott's attitude to it, we need to press them high, we need to get in their faces.
Yeah, and he's going to be a big player. I think he's going to be a massive player, like him or not. Absolute leader. He leads from the front, and if he's on his game, you know, other players will respond to the way he plays. You know, and it can certainly put other players off as well. You know, if he's in your face, you know, I wouldn't like to be on the other side of him. You know, on the park, and I think it depends a large part of how he plays and how we play.
Yeah, we had Barry Douglas, the Lech Poznan defender, on last night, Gordon Smith, and the question on everybody's lips, how do you stop Robert Lewandowski? And I think Barry came up with quite a novel way that was probably predominant in your guys' era of football: smash him. Other than that, we just have to hope that he has an off night.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it happened when we did play them in Poland. It was a bad tackle on him. Gordon Greer went through and caught him. And there's no doubt about it, he has suffered for that, and it might put him off psychologically. It might affect him, Peter. Who knows whether he thinks, if he's already talking about Scotland, not so much even a dirty, just being overly aggressive. That's the way our game is. It might put him off a little bit, but he's definitely a player needs to be watched. The biggest factor for me is about service to him. If you can reduce the service, then you've got a chance of keeping him out of the game, because he's a first-class finisher and he's in great form. We always talk about, you know, one position that you want to have foreign players in is in striker position, and there's no question that his striking at the moment is sensational. I mean, 12 goals in 4 games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at last night, Gordon, as well, Ruffy. I was looking at the stats on him. I mean, it's scary. He's looking for his 30th international goal, as well as, of course, he's, I think, the top scorer for Poland. In fact, top scorer, 10 goals in the European Championship qualifiers. I mean, every stat you look at, and even the goals 5 against Wolfsburg, everything he touches at the moment, it's not a purple patch, it's a golden period.
Yeah, but I mean, I think people have touched on it, and fortunately for us, he's not going to be his teammates playing in this game either, because they are very influential in the balls that they're putting through. If you look at a lot of his goals, they're through fantastic passes to him, you know, cutting defences from the Bayern. So we're hoping that the Polish guys, you know, aren't as good as the Bayern players, but they've certainly got other players as well. I like the other boy in their team. Is it Milak?
Yeah, from Ajax.
He scored 6 goals as well. You know, I don't think we want to focus on one particular player, because sure enough, somebody else come up and bite you when you don't expect it.
Well, the one thing I don't want to be guilty of on this programme is building them up to be some sort of major force, Gordon. They are not. We were, you know, not too far away from actually getting all 3 points in Poland. We had a 2-1 lead in that game. They had to score late on. I mean, you know,
that's correct.
They are not going to be there or thereabouts when it comes to that tournament. You know, they are beatable.
Yeah, I think they got the reputation basically made based on the fact they beat Germany early on. And we didn't. We thought we'd done well by having a narrow defeat to Germany, whereas they did beat Germany. So that was the factor that everybody thought, oh, Poland's a good team, and they have something. Gordon Strachan's mentioned it before. The fact is, you know, you take Wales just now, somebody like Gareth Bale turns a game. That's what Poland have in Lewandowski. That's the big danger we have. We don't have anybody of that quality who is a match winner for us on their own, whereas he can be at times, and that's why, you know, they are beatable. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but it's still going to be tough. And the fact is that the pressure's on us to a degree. I mean, they're sitting in quite a comfortable position. They'd probably settle for a draw themselves, but you know, they're quite happy to think that, you know, they're going to catch us on the counter attack, because this is a game that Scotland will be going out to win.
And if anything, the only area that worries me in the team, Ruffy, is our defence. I mean, I think we've got good choices in the middle of the park. We know we haven't got a goal scorer, but I think we're always susceptible to losing goals. That's my real fear in this whole team ethic.
Yeah, I think Gordon's got the team very well organised for teams trying to hit us on the break. There's no doubt about that. But you're right. You know, it's the old scenario: balls coming into the box. You're shutting your eyes and hoping that somebody actually deals with it. And it has been our failing right through it. But I'm sure Gordon will be working on it day to day. You know, as they're out there. And let's just hope that I would like to think that they'll come here and look for a draw rather than a win.
Yeah.
And I think they'll think that if we can get a draw here, we're done and dusted, and that might be to our advantage, because I think we us being on the front foot. But this game's all about who gets the first goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's crucial is, Peter, we all know there's two aspects to it. It's what we do in the next two games. We're sure we're going to win the second game, but what happens tomorrow night? Because but the other aspect is we're also looking at what Ireland are doing.
Yes.
And we're all assuming to a degree that Ireland are going to lose both games.
Yes.
So we're hopeful that is the case, because then 4 points gives us the qualifying spot, right? If we don't. If they were all of a sudden Ireland to get a result against Germany tomorrow night, it puts us under severe pressure on the night. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But it's down to us. It's a winnable game. It will be tough though.
Yeah. Gut feeling?
Gut feeling a draw. I keep thinking it's going to be a draw.
My gut feeling's a draw as well, but
Yeah.
I hope I'm seriously wrong.
Yeah, that's the great thing about having you two on, you know, a draw. I mean, I'm going to be the only positive one on the programme. I hope I'm right. Please, Gordon and the boys, get it right. We definitely want the crowd right behind the team, and then I couldn't care if it was a ricochet that hit a pigeon on the way into the back of the Poland net. That would do just nicely for us. Good to chat to the guys. Don't forget, go on to Show Racism the Red Card. And you can find out more on their website about the positive messages from Gordon, Ruffy and myself. Good night.
Hi, I'm Chris Sutton. To win this beautiful signed shirt from me, which club did Celtic sign me from?
Hi, I'm Craig Turnbull, and don't forget you can watch the PLZ Soccer news headlines Monday to Friday by clicking on the link below.
Welcome back to Peter and Ruffy's Football Show. Alan Ruff and Gordon Smith are with me, Peter Martin. Delighted to have your company on this extended football show tonight. We've been talking about the group that Scotland are in at the moment, Ruffy, and again, Gordon just alluded to it prior to the break. Republic of Ireland. I mean, I loved the Robbie Keane interview from Roy Keane talking about will Robbie Keane be okay to play because his wife's had a baby. I mean, he's just absolutely magnificent in his delivery, Roy Keane. I mean, he's taking no nonsense from anybody.
Yeah, and it was fantastic where he did it from. It looked as if it was out on a park.
Yeah.
You know, with all the media around about him fenced off and everything. So he's just so relaxed around about the media, and it's some of the stuff he comes away with is just unbelievable. But
yeah,
that was particularly funny.
Absolutely. I don't think Robbie Keane will be feeding the baby, so it won't really affect his stamina, to be perfectly honest with you. But the Republic of Ireland know what they've got to do. It's not going to be easy. We found out to our cost that the Germans, when they want to go through the gears, Gordon, I thought they were superb to watch. Their movement, clinical in that final third as well. I don't expect the Republic of Ireland to win this one or get a draw.
No, you wouldn't think so, but it's quite interesting to look at the previous fixtures. I mean, they've had 2 draws already. I think we're the only team to beat the Republic of Ireland so far, which is quite interesting. I think that they've had their wins against Georgia. They've had 4 wins, which are against Georgia and Gibraltar. They've had draws against Germany and Poland and lost to us and drew with us as well, obviously. But so we're the only team that's beaten them so far. So most of us are looking at it thinking, well, they won't get points from Germany or Poland, but they have already in the group. So that would be detrimental to our own hopes if they do, because I say they've got a 4-point lead on Scotland, and if they lose both games, then because of the head-to-head, us having the win over them means that if we're equal points, we're in the 3rd spot. So that's a big factor. And so depending on what we do, we're also going to be looking very closely at Republic of Ireland's results.
Yeah, and of course, Ruffy, we've got to read into managers who I think are being completely fair. Joachim Low says, you know, we have a responsibility to go out there and try and win games, and we owe that to Scotland and any other nation.
Yeah, and that's what we're hoping. We're hoping the same Germany turns up in Ireland that turned up at Hampden when I thought they were absolutely magnificent. I think the good thing for us is I personally don't think Republic of Ireland have got 2 goals in them against quality sides. I think they're a very, very hard side to beat. There's no doubt about that. They don't lose many goals. But I would like to think Germany's got 2 goals in them at least. And I think the best Ireland would be able to get would be a draw.
Yeah, okay. Just out of curiosity, I know you two guys mentioned a draw in the Poland game. Do you still think that we're going to get to the playoffs? There's a better question for this part of the show.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, I mean, see,
that wasn't the question.
You know, no. The thing about it is, if we'd taken the Georgia game the way we should have, you know, we wouldn't be Scotland. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about this. It'd be done and dusted.
That's where we blew it.
And now we're relying on everybody else.
Yeah, well, we can't keep looking back on it. Georgia's gone.
Yeah,
it's gone. Yeah. So are we making
realistic? I think Republic of Ireland are good enough to get a draw in one of these games.
Yeah. Georgia was the last time Georgia did it to us as well was when Alec McLeish was manager. We ended up having to win at home. Then we were in a position still to qualify, but we to beat Italy. Now we're in a position where we have to beat Poland maybe. A draw though I think could be enough, because I look at it and I think I look at the 2 games the Republic of Ireland have got and I think I can't see them winning either game, and I just worry they might get a point in one of the games, a draw or whatever. But I think that I would look at it now and think that, you know, even a point might suffice for us, because we will get 3 off from Gibraltar. Yeah.
So you think we're going to make it into the playoff?
I still think we can. Yes.
There is a permutation, obviously, if Northern Ireland, if Republic of Ireland get a draw and we win our 2 games.
Yes.
So
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Correct.
You know, it's in our hands.
Yes.
You know, so. I'm trying to be as positive as I possibly can, but I don't think I've won you over on this, Ruffy.
No, I'd be happy with a playoff. You know, I was looking at some of the groups there, and there are teams in there that could be in the playoff that you would like to think were good enough to beat them.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, if we got to the playoffs, I would still be very hopeful of getting there.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons that I was very much in favour of this new tournament, the 24 teams, and I voted for it at the meetings, because I felt that it would at least keep the groups going to the very end, and that's what we're seeing here. The groups are more exciting to the very last games, and we've got 2 final games here, and we still don't know who's going to be in the playoffs. There's still playoffs to come, so it's a great aspect, and almost half the teams in Europe now are qualifying for the finals. The 24 teams out of 53.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's 32 teams still in with a chance, Ravi, of making the playoffs in this, but I think it's all going to become a lot clearer by the time tomorrow night is over at Hampden Park. We'll either be on a high, thinking to ourselves we can do it, or we'll be on the biggest downer of all time, Ruffy, just thinking about another World Cup campaign. How long is this going to go on?
If anything's positive, I can't see us getting beat tomorrow night. I just can't. I think we're so organised now. I wish I had more belief that we could score 2 goals. If I thought we had 2 goals in us against a good side, I would be more than confident that we'd go through. But it's just when I look at all the games, you know, the own goal against Georgia, you know, the hitting off Dingley's backside against Ireland. We don't go out and win games comfortably. If we were doing that, then I was feeling more confident. But I do think we won't get beat tomorrow night.
Yeah, well, as I said, Ruffy, I couldn't care who scores, how the goal goes in the back of the net, as long as it goes in. That's the most important factor. OK, fingers crossed for that. You can give us your view at Peter and Ruffy, and also facebook.com/Peter and Ruffy. Are you a confident Scotland fan, or are you going to Hampden Park maybe fearing the worst? Is it going to be another hard luck story? And the wait continues. Since 1998 we haven't qualified for a major championships. That's the international football. What about the domestic scene? No surprise, Ruffy. Peter Houston gets a notice of complaint, but it was for another interview on Falkirk TV after the Rangers game, where I think they feel as if he just went over the mark in his criticism of the match officials. Yeah,
well, if we're led to believe it's what he did say to the officials, I think he will be answerable to that, and I think Peter will hold his hands up and realise that he can't say things like that to the referee. But you can see why. You know, you can see, you know, the frustration of going to Ibrox and 1 each and holding your own. had a couple of chances at one each as well, you know, so that would make it even worse when that free kick was given. He's led to believe, well, he is, that the Rangers had a chat to the referee walking up the tunnel. Whether that's true or not, who knows. But certainly, from a manager's point of view, you can see why he was annoyed.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon, to be perfectly honest with you, it's a classic competition that we should be doing on the programme. What was the word he used? Was it A, handbag, B, carrier bag, or C? And you win. You can win lots of money. It's an easy answer, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. It's one of these things that you got to be careful at times. There's two things about it. It's what you say to the referee, but also it's whether you're accusing them of bias or not, or whether you're saying, like, it's all very well to say you made a mistake. Now, the only thing I could think about, Peter was saying that Mark Warburton was having a chat with the referee at half time. The only thing I can think about there was he must have been complaining about decisions that Rangers never got. Yeah. So if he's complaining about decisions Rangers never got, then that's a sign that there was he maybe thinking the very same as Peter was at the end of the game, thinking that decision went against us. Now, it didn't affect maybe his team, but the fact was, if it had been a 2-1 win for Rangers, I could see even a bit more than that. They're getting a bit upset about it. It was one each, but it finished 3-1. So Rangers did get another goal, albeit you could say it was because his team were in a downer after losing the second goal. But there's a lot of things that go on in games, and managers have always got complaints because the referee will never get it 100% right. Yeah, well, I've got no qualms with it. Peter is a passionate man. We had him on the programme last week, Ruffy, and Mark Warburton yesterday mentioned it was such a key moment in the game that he didn't have a problem with Peter Houston losing the head. Managers do that. Yeah, I honestly think if it had been on the other foot, I think the Rangers manager as well would have been upset if he'd went away from home and battled in there and it was one each and you're trying to see the game out and you're looking quite comfortable, you're still creating a couple of chances and all of a sudden you get a free kick against you that you think 100% wasn't a free kick. I think we'll all have our own ideas on whether it was or wasn't, but for me, the defensive wall was shocking. I think if I was Peter Houston, I'd be worried about that. I don't know if you get a chance to see it again, but they were all over the place. It was a great strike, there's no doubt about that, but the defensive wall could have done a lot better. Yeah, I agreed. I thought that as well. I was thinking that they could have defended it a bit better too, so maybe, Peter, rather than coming out and having a go at his players, was really maybe wanting to have more of a go at the ref, but for giving the free kick. But it was still, it's not... A penalty kick would have been more crucial than a free kick, to be fair. But if it had been defended better, it could have been stopped. Yep, absolutely. It's still open to debate, but the upshot of it all is that it's a fairly straightforward process. You go up there, you plead your case, and then eventually you get a fine or a ban. That's how it works. Gordon knows. That's how these committees work. OK, lots more to come on the programme. It's an extended Peter and Ruffy football show, and we'll have more, including Dundee United Motherwell, who's going to be the manager. Welcome back to the final part of Peter and Ruffy's football show, this extended football show tonight. Hopefully you're enjoying the chat, and we move on now to managers, and two in particular looking for a job. It looks as if St Johnstone will be able to hold on to their manager unless there's a dramatic twist. And I wonder about this, Gordon. Tommy Wright, I think the general feeling, certainly Jeff Brown's comments over the last 24 hours, is that he feels there's a bigger club for Tommy Wright rather than Dundee United if he just keeps doing what he's doing at St Johnstone. Yeah, I mean, that's a real compliment to him, and that's a very good, clever thing to say in order to try and keep your manager at the club by saying, you can do a lot better than this, don't go yet, and... it depends, but the whole thing about it, as we all know in football, is that, the best thing in football sometimes is to move on when your stock is high, when you're at a good level. And Tommy Wright, couldn't be in a better after Saturday's result to go against the league leaders and win 5-1 away from home. He puts you in a pedestal. So I think that's why Dundee United have obviously got a lot of interest in him. He's done a good job there, and it's up to him whether he thinks that by moving to Dundee United he's going to improve himself, or that St Johnstone's the best place to stay. Maybe get a new contract new increase in wages, and maybe something we put in his contract to say this is what the compensation will be if a club comes in for you.
Yeah. The bookies have slashed the odds on John Hughes. There's been a flurry of bets on Yogi getting the Dundee United job. Just before I get your thoughts on Yogi, something that was coming to my head, and I'm not for a minute thinking you're going to rhyme them off, Ruffy, but I wonder about the Dundee United job. Is it a poison chalice?
Well, from the outside looking in, it certainly seems that way, the way that Jackie was treated. The next manager will have to seriously look at that situation. He'll have to get reassurances that where he actually stands, what are the objectives of the club, you know, and what they're looking for from the new manager. These are things that most definitely, but I would think if I was Tommy Wright, I would want to take it. I think it's a step up. It's a bigger club. I think Tommy Wright, like John Hughes up at Inverness, has done everything. I don't think he can take them anywhere else. So they're still getting 3,000 and 4,000 crowds. I would think you'd want to go to a club like Dundee United, who has got a fantastic history. They've got a fan base there that you could get back up to 12,000, 13,000. You have obviously more money to spend. If it was me, I would be taking the chance.
I'm racking my brain. The reason I'm saying that is I'm racking my brain trying to think of a manager who's gone to Dundee United and moved on to better things. Craig Levein springs to mind, but you know, Ian McCall, Peter Houston, Jackie McNamara.
Yes.
They're now all looking, and you would assess Jackie McNamara's managerial stint there as now he's going to have to try and prove himself all over again. Yeah,
that's a good point. I think Peter Houston came out and you know he's gone to Falkirk, but you're right, it's not a step up from Dundee United. And you're right, Craig Levein is only one. He got the Scotland job while he was manager there. So other than that, I know what you mean. It's a question of what you do. Ruffy's right in respect to saying, you know, can you do much more at the club you're at? John Hughes done brilliantly at Inverness. He won the cup, got them into third place in Europe. Tommy Wright's done the same. He's won a cup, first time in their history too. It's quite interesting. Both managers are the first to do it, and Dundee United were the victims to those managers too in those cups. So, but you have to say that, you know, is it time to move and say, okay? But if you're going in there, you would be putting a very strict set of laying down exactly what you want from the team in terms of am I getting money to spend? Do I need to sell my top players? Do I have a choice in whether I sell them or not? I know the club have to make money because St Johnstone have to do the same, but he might want to have a bit more control over it than just say, supposing a bid comes in, he'll say, I can take that or I don't have to. Yeah. And then he'll also need to know what do you want to achieve. Probably if either of those guys go in there, first thing that Stephen Thompson's going to say is, we want the cup, because he's done. Both these men have done it for their previous clubs. So Tommy Wright going into Dundee United will probably be put under pressure to get a cup win. Yeah. Whether that happens or not, only time will tell. As far as Motherwell are concerned, it all went a little bit quiet there after the Dundee defeat. So Stephen Craigan now might be thinking to himself, I wonder what's happening here, because suddenly Motherwell will open talks with Simo Valakari, although his side in Finland are adamant that he won't be allowed to leave until the end of the season. Well, that could be a stumbling block, because it's only a couple of games, though, Ruffy. If it's only a couple of games, then it's not, you know. But I thought you were talking about maybe 2 or 3 months or something like that. But no, you know, Stephen, I would think behind the scenes will have to make the owner know that he is interested, because he's sort of laid back off it, you know. And the defeat at the weekend there, you know, wouldn't have helped matters, you know, on the assumption that if you win 3 games, then you are the man, sort of a thing. So no, I think there's lots of things that will be going on there. It looks as if both teams are interviewing for the job, so I'm sure there'll be lots of other managers beginning, and it might just be somebody that just ticks that box. Yeah, absolutely. I'm wondering about Motherwell going down the route of, okay, he's a former player, he'll know the Scottish game from his time playing in it. I was thinking of Harry Kampman, who was one of the other Scandinavians that I remember coming over to manage Motherwell. But you know, we don't know what Valakari has in his pedigree, other than the fact that he has a top team in Finland. Yeah, they've checked him out, Peter. That's true, and I think Ruffy's right in the respect of the saying. You know, if you look at Stephen Craigan was probably favourite, and then the defeat on Saturday puts him back a little bit. No match this weekend, so they've got to wait till next weekend. It might actually suit them, the fact that Valakari isn't available for a couple of weeks' time, because they might speak to the lad and say, okay, you're a candidate, we could be interested in you when your season's finished, because in Finland the season runs like April to end of October really. So you're looking at a scenario there where Stephen Craigan might still get a couple of games in, and they might still decide on it, depending on how he does in those games. They might say, okay, it was a little bit of a setback, the Dundee game, but he's got other results and therefore he's the main guy. But if Valakari was able to be appointed right away, and they're talking with him, then it would take Stephen Craigan out the system really, because I don't think he'd be a candidate then. Yeah,
all eyes are of course on the international first and foremost, and then we'll go back to those domestic issues at the start of next week. May well be that both camps have appointed a manager, Dundee United and Motherwell, so we will undoubtedly talk about that continually throughout this week as the story develops. But as far as other stories that have caught my eye, one of them is Virgil van Dijk, who says he's learned more in 4 or 5 games with Southampton than he did in 2 years at Celtic.
Well, no, I think he's trying to explain to everybody that he's playing against better players. Yeah. He's had to adjust himself. He's had to come up to a better level of forward, and he's assessing obviously the players that he was coming up against at Celtic, because I don't ever remember being under pressure in the SPFL. I don't remember anybody taking him to the cleaners, and he's coming up against some wonderful players down in England, and I have to say he's adapted very well. I thought he might have struggled a wee bit early on. I know Man United gave him a wee bit of a run around.
Yeah, Martial.
Yeah, but certainly I think he's just trying to emphasise that it's a bigger and bigger world down there than it is where he's just come from.
Yeah, I think the thing about it is that everybody would say, obviously, he was playing for the top team in the Premier League. Therefore, he was playing alongside a better group of players, the best group of players, and comfortably winning most games. And he could actually showboat to a certain degree at times. That won't happen, because he's now in a team who are having to fight week on, week out. I mean, they're actually doing quite well, because you think about it, that they're well up the league, Southampton, but he's going to be up against better players, and he's not going to have the sort of quality round about him that is far better than the opponents he's got. So I can understand what he's saying. I don't think he needed to say it.
Yeah.
I think it's one of these ones we could envisage it, but it didn't have to be said.
Yeah, and I don't think it's been lost in translation either, but I'm sure there'll be a few peeved at it. Just a couple of little points on players coming back, Ruffy. Good news for Hibs. Farid El Alagoui and Jamie Insal getting under 20 games, and Mark Reynolds back, playing in a game for Aberdeen as well. That'll be good for both managers. Well,
particularly at Hibs, they've been relying on the boy Cummins and Malonga for a long time, and it's a well-known fact that strikers do go off the boil. If you've got another one that can come in and take over for them, it's fantastic. But Alan Stubbs hasn't had that luxury, because he's been out for a long time. So yep, another striker would be good for them.
Yeah. You need competition in different positions, and that will help Aberdeen as well, because that's all of a sudden they were cruising along there, but last few games losing goals, losing games. They must be looking at that now and saying they need to tighten up, and that's why Reynolds being in there. He's a top player for them.
Yeah, and no surprise, Ruffy, just briefly, Stephen Presley takes the Fleetwood job.
Yeah, well, he said he wanted to stay down in England. I don't think he even put his name forward for the jobs up here, so that job's come available, and they're a good side to be with.
Yeah, okay, we leave you just with the thoughts of the Poland manager Adam Nawalka, who's fairly confident about his side's chances at Hampden tomorrow night. Let's keep our fingers crossed that we are indeed talking about a fantastic Scotland victory. Don't forget to go on to Show Racism the Red Card, their website, to get some positive messages to pass on to people. From Ruffy, Gordon and myself, good night.